About the biggest stories that matter to you the most. Breaking news, John Calipari is finalizing a 5-year deal to become the Arkansas Razorbacks' next head coach, covering college sports like no one else. The biggest guests in sports. We now welcome in Hall of Famer Jim Calhoun.
Such a pride I had, I came to Connecticut.
The legend, Tim Tebow joins us.
We'll run it back. I like it.
The legend, Herschel Walker. Welcome in, everybody. Little Tuesday morning edition, Air Torres Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Air Torres. Hope everybody's doing well. Hope everybody's having a great day. It's March. We got a lot to talk about, and I think we got a pretty fun Tuesday show planned for you. Here is what we're going to talk about here on a Tuesday. We will open Arizona Big 12 champs outright, no share, number 1 seed in the Big 12 tournament next week. I think they actually may be built better than all these other teams to win it all come the big bracket in a few weeks. Speaking of Arizona, our buddy Mike Luke. We don't do a lot of guests on this show, certainly not live, but Mike Luke, the AZ12 Wildcats podcast, I think it's the best Arizona content anywhere. He will join us probably about 20 or so minutes from now. We will also talk the Duke game. Listen, I know nobody wants to give credit to Duke for anything. They look freaking awesome. One, I think John Shire is just better than people give him credit for. But two, also, I think they're doing it in a different way. Also, one insider says they may be better built to win this year than last year, so we'll discuss that. And then finally, Tyran Stokes. You didn't think I could do a weekly update on Tyran Stokes, did you? Well, guess what? There is a new twist. He apparently wants to now visit Kentucky. Is it leverage? Should Kentucky even be going after him? Goodness gracious, do we have a lot to discuss on today's show. Before we get started, a couple quick reminders. One, make sure that you are subscribed to the Aaron Torres Pod YouTube channel. New clips, new videos going up every single day. We do appreciate your support. Well over 70,000 subscribers. We could get to 71,000 before the end of the week. Can we get to 80,000 by the end of March Madness? I think that we can. So make sure to subscribe, rate, review, also on Apple and Spotify as well. Also, before we get started, you know what we got to do? You know who we got to thank? Our friends, our hotel and casino partners. We got to thank Circa Sportsbook and Circa Casino, okay? So bottom line is this, is that, first of all, it's March. If you're in Vegas, the best place to go watch games, NCAA tournament, is the Circa Sportsbook in Vegas. Matt and I were out there a few years ago. Just insane week of conference tournaments, week of the NCAA tournament. But here's the thing. I know a lot of you can't get out to the Circa Sportsbook in Vegas, and so this is what you need to do. You need to go to the new Circa Sportsbook at the Mint Gaming Hall, Mint Kentucky Downs in beautiful Franklin, Kentucky. All of the same great amenities that you get in Vegas have come to the Mint. It's about 35 minutes from Nashville. It's about 20 minutes from Bowling Green, Kentucky. I was there a few months back. Best place to be watching games in March. And how about this? Next week is the SEC tournament. Producer Matt and I are going to be at the Mint next Tuesday night. Okay, so here is the deal. Pay attention. If you're in the area or if you are going to Nashville for the SEC tournament, make sure to pay attention. Take out your notepad. Take some notes here, because here is the deal. We are throwing an awesome get-together next Tuesday, March 10th, a week from today at the Mint, okay? So basically, we will be at the Mint. We will have food. We will have drinks, free food, free drinks, I should mention, at the Mint. This is the day before the SEC tournament. It is the best place to be hanging the day before the SEC tournament starts. The Mint Kentucky the Mint Kentucky Downs in Franklin, Kentucky, the brand new Circa Sportsbook. Like I said, free food, free drinks. Come hang out. And here is the thing. Make sure to get your name in as early as possible. There will be limited space, but we want all of you there. So if you want to come, you can email me, Aaron Torres podcast questions at gmail.com. Aaron Torres podcast questions at gmail.com. Come hang out at the Mint. We've had a lot of you reach out already. We've got a nice RSVP list going, but we need some more from you. So go ahead, reach out. We want you there. The brand new Circa Sportsbook at the Mint Kentucky Downs, day before the SEC tournament. This is the place that you got to be. The Mint, next Tuesday, March 10th. By the way, I will find out later this week exactly what time we will be there. I think it'll probably be about 7 Eastern, 6 Central time. That's when all the games are starting, so we'll be watching all the games going on. But the Mint, next Tuesday, March 10th. And again, if you want to be part of the party, reach out. The Mint Kentucky Downs at beautiful Circa Sportsbook. With that said, it is a busy Tuesday in the world of sports. There is no more time to waste. So people, let's get to it. Let's get to the topic of the day. Topic of the day. We got ourselves a Big 12 champion, baby. That is right. So the big topic, it is the Arizona Wildcats. And let me even say this about Arizona coming in. It's been an incredible season, but after Saturday's win over Kansas, I did wonder. They were hosting Iowa State, short turnaround. And one thing kind of stuck out to me as I was kind of thinking about this game coming into the week. It's been a very emotional couple weeks for the Arizona Wildcats. A few weeks ago, you have a couple losses. Then Koa Pete goes down with injury, and you're kind of wondering, how are you going to handle that back-to-back BYU at home, Houston on the road? Then you sweep that. You get the great win over Houston. Then everybody comes back healthy. Then you have Kansas at home. And I said, is there any possibility that there is a letdown against a hungry Iowa State team that just lost at home on Saturday to Texas Tech? Is this a spot where Arizona, I don't know why I said Arkansas, where Arizona could potentially fall, could potentially get tripped up? Is there any possibility they clinch the share over the weekend? Can they clinch outright at home? Yeah, safe to say there was no issue. Final score in Tucson, Arizona. Arizona beats Iowa State 73-57. And in just their second year in the Big 12, they have clinched the Big 12 outright regular season title. First one, obviously, in school history since joining the Big 12 2 years ago. They will be the number 1 seed at the Big 12 tournament next week. As we get into this game, and as I look at this game, there's a few big picture thoughts, but let's talk about this game specifically. And the first thing that I would say, I really do believe that this game, to me, was a metaphor for the entire season for the Arizona Wildcats. What do I mean by that? What Arizona has done all year, maybe better than anybody in college basketball, is just a different guy, a new guy is stepping up every single night. I was there opening night against Florida. Koa Pete steps up 30 points. You had games where Jaden Bradley's been the best player, where even Karchenkov's been the best player, where Krivas has been the best player, where Toby Awaka's been the best player, where Braden Burries has been awesome. Well, I bring it up because Tuesday night, it was interesting. Braden Burries is getting a lot of love from, fans, mock drafts, whatever. He goes down with a twisted ankle early. You wonder how he's going to handle it. He comes back, then gets poked in the eye. Thankfully, he's okay, but he ends the game on the bench with an ice pack on his head. And you know what? It does not matter because other guys stepped up. Jaden Bradley with 17 points, 4 rebounds, and 3 steals. Mount Krivas, 13 points, 3 rebounds. And oh, by the way, even in a game where he both twisted his ankle and poked his eye, Braden Burries, 11 points and 6 rebounds. Also, my guy, Toby Awaka, 10 points, 15 rebounds off the bench. Toby freaking Awaka, baby, okay? And so I actually think Toby Awaka is a great place to transition to the bigger picture because, first of all, what stands out to me about Arizona is a couple things. One, it is that depth. It is the number of different guys that can beat you on any given night. And by the way, it wasn't just me who feels that way. It was also a little guy named TJ Otzelberger. Not sure if you've heard of him. Iowa State head coach after the game made a statement at the press conference. Matt, you could put that tweet up. TJ Otzelberger telling the media that was assembled, that is as good of a team as we have played since I've been a head coach at Iowa State. So he's in year 4, year 5 at Iowa State. So that's as good of a team as we have played. They've played a bunch of good Kansas teams. They for a national championship. He said they are as good as just anybody. I think beyond that, the other thing that stands out about this Arizona team specifically is the fact that, like, they're just tougher than everybody, man. And it's crazy because I've seen this a few times. But over the course of watching this Arizona team, I do think there is something to be said about the fact that they ain't getting bullied. They ain't getting pushed around, and it was funny because you've seen it throughout the season. They played Florida early in the year. Listen, I think Florida's awesome right now. They weren't as good on opening night, but guess what? Arizona bullied them. I was in the arena. Krivas had Alex Condon in a freaking body bag the entire game, okay? So you have him. You have Koa Pete. You have Toby Owaka, who, again, 10 points, 15 rebounds. This team is as physical as anybody in college basketball. And what stands out is the fact that against the most physical teams in the country, they are bringing the physicality to them. Like I said, Florida, a few weeks ago, it stood out at Houston. In that win, they bullied Houston, the team that bullies everybody. It happened again on Monday night. And it was interesting because Tommy Lloyd addressed it after the game. I personally did not know that there was some narrative that Arizona was soft. But Tommy Lloyd has heard the noise. He was not happy about it. Here is Tommy Lloyd talking about that narrative after the game.
I think the narrative that we were soft is lazy. I mean, look at our stats. Look at our analytics. We've always been a great rebounding team. We've always pounded the paint. If you want to just be lazy and not pay attention and say we're soft because we're on the West Coast, be lazy. And I'd love to play against you because we know we got dudes and we love this game and I'm okay with this style of game. I have no problem with how it played out. And if you want to compete at the highest level of college basketball, you better be able to go toe to toe with somebody. And so that's how we're built. And I think we've always been built that way.
So that was Tommy Lloyd after the game. First of all, let me say this: of all my favorite Tommy Lloyds, backwards hat Tommy Lloyd is definitely my favorite Tommy Lloyd. That's one. Two, I didn't really know that it was this narrative that Arizona was soft, but there you go. Tommy Lloyd said it himself. Whatever, dude. If you don't believe in us, that's fine. Do your homework. Take that for data. We're physical. We're tough. We're mean. Bigger picture, couple thoughts on Arizona beyond that. The first one, and we talked about this on Sunday, so I won't spend much time on it. Arizona is now 28-2 with one game left in the regular season. 14 quad one wins, tied for the most in college basketball. I am here to tell you, this is one of the great regular seasons that we have ever seen. Matt, you could pop up the new tweet, which was basically the same tweet I sent the other day. Look at this resume. After the win against Iowa State, let's look at this resume, okay? 1 at Houston. Houston may be a number 1 seed. 1 at UConn. UConn may be a number 1 seed. I know they're not all going to be number 1 seeds, but one of these 3 teams is getting a number 1 seed. And Arizona either beat them on the road or neutral sites. Beat Houston at Houston. Beat UConn at UConn. Beat Florida at home. Took care of Kansas. Took care of Iowa State. Swept BYU. Oh, by the way, beat UCLA in LA. Beat Alabama in Alabama. I know I said it the other day. This is one of the best regular seasons that we've ever seen. It just is, point blank, period, end of story. And it's funny, I think sometimes, and I say this all the time, but I think sometimes in life, we can't appreciate history in the moment. I think sometimes too often you sit there and say, this wasn't as good as back in 02 or 07. Even as a UConn fan a few years ago when they won it, going 37-3 to win the title 2 seasons ago. I remember telling my UConn buddies, I was like, that's the best season in UConn basketball history, probably. Certainly the most dominant. I don't know, record-wise, it wasn't better than 99. But I just bring it up because I said, we may never see that again. And as good as Arizona has been for my entire life, we may never see an Arizona regular season like that again. I think the other big picture takeaway, and maybe this is crazy and maybe it isn't, I think that there are clearly, in my opinion, I think there are 4 teams that have separated. Some would say 5, some would say 3. I think we all know that Michigan, Arizona, and Duke are that top 3. I would put Florida in that upper tier. I know some wouldn't. I know some would put UConn in. I personally would not. I know some might even put Houston in, okay? What I am here to say, though, is I actually think that of all these teams, Arizona is the one that is best built to win in March because they can beat you in so many different ways, right? It's kind of interesting. You look at all these teams, everybody has a great front court, which is kind of interesting because that is not normal in this world of college hoops that we live in. But you look at Michigan, obviously 3 great front court players, Yaxel Lendenborg, Merez Johnson, Adai Mara. Duke has Cam Boozer. Duke has Malik Brown. They're awesome in the front court. And, of course, Florida's 3 front court guys are all going to get drafted in the first round, Tommy Hauck, Condon, and Ruben Chinyelu. Arizona has that. Arizona, like I said, has basically gone toe-for-toe with most of the best front courts in college basketball and has not only held up, but has in many cases dominated. But 2, you look at some of these other teams, I don't know that the guard play is as good as Braden Burries and Jaden Bradley. I don't know that I trust the backcourt at Duke as much as I trust Jaden Bradley and Braden Burries. I don't know that I trust the backcourt with Elliot Cadeau at Michigan as much as I trust Braden Burries and Jaden Bradley. UConn, I don't know that I trust either the front court or the backcourt as much as I trust Arizona. But that's the thing, right? Michigan can physically overwhelm you. But we saw against Duke that if they're not hitting threes, they can be beaten. Duke, I think it's the same kind of question, which is Cam Boozer's going to get his 25 and 10, whatever it's going to be, but is there that consistent second guy, that consistent third guy? The defense is great, and we're going to talk about it in a minute, but what happens when a team is able to put the ball in the basket on them? Do they have enough offensively? Arizona, again, they can put up points, they can defend, they rebound. I know they don't shoot a ton of threes, but first of all, they shoot a pretty good percentage. Braden Burries is a good shooter, whatever. But 2, they don't have to when they are as dominant in the paint as they have been all season long. So credit to the Arizona Wildcats. Credit to Arizona winning its first Big 12 title. It won't be the last. But as I said, I don't know that we will ever see a team quite like this in the regular season again. It's unbelievable. And I'll tell you what, you know who's going to join me in just a minute to talk about it all? Mike Luke of the AZ12 Wildcats podcast. By the way, great call by producer Matt. Make sure you are following our Torres on Arizona account. Torres on Arizona for all of your late breaking Arizona news. They were up late into the night tweeting on, I guess it would have been Monday night. Torres on Arizona. Tell you what, so what we're going to do. We're going to take a quick break. We're going to come back. When we do, my buddy Mike Luke, AZ12 Wildcats podcast. If you're not familiar with Mike, definitely a little bit of a strange bird, but you know, he's like a stray dog that, you know, once he starts hanging out in the front yard, you kind of can't help but like him. That's kind of Mike Luke, but he also does a great job covering the Arizona Wildcats. He will join us here in about 5 minutes or so. We'll take a quick break. We'll be right back. Mike Luke, AZ12 Wildcats podcast is next. All right, we're going to get back to the show in a minute, but before we do, you know what we got to do. We got to thank our friends. We got to thank our partners. We got to go ahead and thank Collie Puffs and ColliePuffs.com. Yeah, you see the logo on the back of the screen right here. Okay, so I've told you all about Collie Puffs, but family-owned company, not far from where I live. Joey, a huge sports fan, and one day he was sitting on the couch and he said, you know what? I need a snack that is both healthy but delicious, something my kids are going to love, something my family's going to love, something I'm going to love. And so he came up with Collie Puffs. This is the new age health food snack. You don't need to go to the grocery aisle and buy all that crap, the Doritos, the Fritos. No, my friends, you need Collie Puffs. Baked, not fried, avocado oil, no grease, healthy ingredients. But here's the best part. They taste freaking delicious. Actually, there's another best part. In addition to tasting delicious, in addition to being healthy, they are also taking care of listeners of the Aaron Torres pod. Okay, so check this out. All you got to do is go to ColliePuffs.com. That's CAULIPUFFS.com, ColliePuffs.com, and you can get 15% off any purchase with the promo code Torres. That's Torres, Torres. It's that simple. 15% off any purchase. 1 bag to try them out, 100 bags to cater a party. Doesn't really matter. Promo code Torres. ColliePuffs.com gets you 15% off. Collie Puffs also available on Amazon. You obviously can't get the promo code there, but ColliePuffs.com, ColliePuffs.com, promo code Torres gets you 15% off any purchase. Thank you to our friends at Collie Puffs. All right, everybody. Hi, I'm back. Good to be back. Mike Luke tells me there's construction going on outside his house. He will be here any minute. Before we get to Mike Luke, we'll get to the chat in a second. Drop your thoughts. Do want to say this, though. Conference tournaments are next week. One, you need to join me at the Mint if you're going to be at the SEC tournament in Nashville. But two, if you happen to be traveling, maybe you're an Arizona fan going to the Big 12 tournament, or maybe you're an Arizona fan that's already starting to look ahead to, hey, we'll probably be playing in San Diego in the opening round of the NCAA tournament. Maybe you're a Kentucky fan. Maybe you're a Tennessee fan. Maybe you're a UConn fan. You're going to need tickets over the next 2 or 3 weeks. That's the theme that I'm trying to get to. Well, guess what? If you need tickets, this is what you need to do. You need to go to SeatGeek. It is America's #1 ticketing app. Over 28 million downloads. And what I love about SeatGeek is two things. One, every ticket on the app rated 1 through 10. You get a green dot or a red dot. Green dot means go ahead and purchase. Red dot means maybe you want to go ahead and stay away. But you know what I really love about SeatGeek? They take care of listeners of the Aaron Torres pod. If you go to SeatGeek.com or the SeatGeek app and you use promo code Torres, that's promo code TORRES, promo code Torres, you get $20 off your first purchase. By the way, it doesn't have to be a conference tournament, doesn't have to be an NCAA tournament, could be a show, could be a NBA game, Major League Baseball. We got all those Arizona fans. Maybe you want to go to spring training. If they are selling a ticket on SeatGeek, all you got to do, use promo code Torres to get you $20 off your first purchase. SeatGeek.com, promo code Torres, $20 off your first purchase. SeatGeek app, promo code $20 off your first purchase. And I should also mention this. I know I keep saying first purchase. If you've used SeatGeek before, just sign up with a new email. You can use promo code Torres a second time, a third time, a fourth time, whatever you need. SeatGeek app, promo code Torres. SeatGeek app, promo code Torres, get you $20 off your first purchase, or your second or your third, but don't tell anybody. Really quickly, Matt, do we have anything in the chat that is worth noting while we wait for Mike here? I don't want to get into another segment. Tucson 520, not only the incredible resume, the wins over Kansas and Iowa State and Florida and at UConn and at Houston, most quad one wins in the country. I mean, yeah, that's a byproduct of playing in the Big 12. Here's the other thing. You have a chance to get another 2 or 3 next week in the Big 12 tournament. So we'll see what happens. We don't have a Big 12 tournament bracket yet. I have been consistent. I think that, first of all, the Big 12 tournament is going to be more entertaining from Thursday to Saturday than the first weekend of the NCAA tournament is going to be Thursday to Saturday. The competition is going to be absolutely unbelievable. If you're going, by the way, SeatGeek.com, promo code Torres, $20 off your first purchase. But that tournament is going to be insane. And most quad one wins, I don't think it's their last quad one win before we look at their resume on Selection Sunday. By the way, it goes without saying, Arizona, I think, pretty clearly has clinched the #1 seed in the West. They will be in San Diego, regional in San Jose. And oh, by the way, looking to get to their first Final Four since 2001, 29-year anniversary of their only national championship, which, of course, was played in Indianapolis, where this year's Final Four will be. What else we got, Matt? Do we know which regional winners play each other in the semis yet? That's a great question. I haven't looked that far ahead. I don't know. I don't think they reseed once you get to... No, they can't because there's a bracket. It's a great question. Dan from Queens, who clearly I think is an Arizona fan, but he's wondering if Arizona and Duke would play in the semis or the finals, assuming they're #1 seeds in the West and the East. I really haven't looked that far ahead. That's really crazy. The one thing I will say, and I've been thinking a lot about this, I am trying to picture a world where Arizona, Michigan, I include Florida. I know that's not popular. I think Florida's playing as well as anybody. I think those are the clear top 4. I can't see 3 of them losing, all likely to each other. Now, Duke we'll talk about in a minute. Michigan has been so dominant all year. It is unbelievable. I'll tell you what, rather than me yapping about Arizona #1 seeds, let's go ahead and bring in our guest, Mike Luke. You can hear him on the AZ12's podcast. Matt, you can bring him in if you want. I see him in the back. There he is. Mike Luke, can you hear me? America is listening to you. What's going on, buddy?
I can hear you, Aaron Torres. How do I sound? Sound all right?
You sound phenomenal. So first of all, I described you for the audience that doesn't know you. First of all, you're great covering Arizona. I described you as kind of like a stray cat that just kind of, wanders into the front yard. And, after like 4 or 5 days, you leave a little milk out. And then next thing you know, the cat's living in that. Is that how you would describe yourself as the prominent voice of the Arizona Wildcats?
That's a great way of putting it. I get a lot of people that are like, yeah, I didn't like this guy at first, and he just kind of wore on me because I thought he was weird. I thought he was strange. They're all right on that stuff. And then after a while, they're like, he's not so bad. Then they start to find me a little funny, maybe a little bit of an oddity. But yeah, I think that's a good comparison. I'm going to steal that and give you no credit.
All right. Well, perfect. Well, I'll tell you what. Let's get into some Arizona basketball because you do cover this team on a day-to-day basis, the AZ12 Wildcats pod. First of all, let me ask you this. We just got a question in the chat. Have we looked far enough ahead to how the bracket works? Like, if Arizona's in the West, because somebody was asking, would we get Arizona Duke in the semis, the finals, whatever? Have you looked that far ahead yet, or is that not allowed to even be done?
Oh, yeah, I have. I mean, people that say they haven't, they're lying. Or many of them. All right. I think what's going to happen is probably this. I think Duke's locked in. Not locked in. I think if Duke wins out, they're going to be that 1 seed. I think that just for a variety of reasons. Then I think you're probably looking at Arizona 2, Michigan 3, and then who knows what, UConn at 4. And so if that's the case, then you would have the 2 and the 3. So that would probably be Arizona and Michigan playing off in the Final Four then, as opposed to then you would get your UConn Huskies and Duke in the championship. But that's kind of the way I'm looking at it. I think they're pretty much locked in, barring Duke losing to, like, I don't know, Louisville or something, or whatever the case may be. An overrated team.
What's that?
An overrated team.
Which one, Duke or Louisville? Or both?
Louisville. No, Duke's awesome.
I was gonna say, you know who hates Louisville more than anybody? Louisville fans right now. They have beaten no one of consequence this year. I thought they'd just be happy, like, oh, we're good again.
Right.
They're not happy.
No, it's funny. Every time I tune in, they're down like 20 points.
Yeah, you sound like a Louisville fan. Let me ask you this, though, because I was watching you guys, the Arizona Wildcats, on Monday night, and I was thinking about, Louisville fans aren't happy. Kentucky fans aren't happy. I was telling you this on your show yesterday, the AZ12 podcast. I think it's been a largely, like, unfulfilling year for even UConn, winning a lot of games, but they're ugly. The competition is bad. I don't think there's a fan base that is probably from the outside, I'm just asking, that has enjoyed like, Arizona players look so happy, the fans look so. Has this been the most enjoyable season that you can remember to just follow and cover?
It's been for a long time, for sure. And the thing about it that's great, too, is that you watch him. It's generally, and it wasn't early on in the game yesterday, but it's generally an aesthetically pleasing style. He wants to get up and down. He wants to run, but they can beat you in a lot of different ways. And I think that's, as an Arizona fan, that's what's a little bit different because, I mean, we can be honest here. Tommy's teams in the previous years, I think before last year, were kind of soft. And I think a lot of that is that, you're in the Pac-12. You're basically playing in Gill Coliseum and Maples where there's nobody in and you just don't care. And then you get to the Big 12 last year, and there was a coach on the staff that told me this, and he said, when we got down 21-4 against Oregon in the round of 32, he's like, I don't know that we win that game if we're in the Pac-12. Because we're just not now in the Big 12. You have to get tougher. You have to. It raises your profile, and it raises your ability to play. And I think that's what you're seeing. I think you're seeing a program that needed to get punched a little bit, needed to get out into the wild, for lack of a better term. And they're doing just that. And I thought in the Big 12 they were really good last year. This year they've been dominant. So that's it's a good thing. Like I said, I was really happy when they made the move, and so far so good.
All right, so I've got a bold take that I'm not ready to unleash on Twitter because I don't want people mad at me.
Let's do it.
Can we acknowledge the Big 12 prior to expansion was a little bit overrated? Because, like, all I heard for years was, Ken Palm says this, and this, they're the best conference ever. And I'm like, Kansas is awesome. Mm-hmm. And then after, Iowa State stunk for a long time. And, there were other good teams at various points. But, like, I think it's noteworthy. Houston comes in, immediately wins back-to-back regular season titles. Arizona, year 2, win. Like, I think it was good. Mm-hmm. I think that there's no doubt. Like, because, like, I'll even say this, and I'll throw it back to you because I'm rambling. But, like, I put out a tweet on whatever it was, like Monday, of, Arizona's putting together one of the great regular seasons ever, and I listed out the wins and blah, blah, blah. And Kansas fans were like, yeah, Arizona fans wish they knew about the double round robin days. And it's like, yeah, I'm sorry. It wasn't harder to win the Big 12 when you had to play TCU twice or freaking at Oklahoma State instead of only playing them at home. Like, BYU, Houston, Arizona, everybody has added to this league. Can we admit the league they needed Arizona to come in and ruffle some feathers along with Houston. Whatever.
The league before expansion was overrated. And the thing I'm going to say this, everybody talks about with Bill Self and they're like, 17 straight. And that's amazing. That's one of the most impressive streaks in sports. But the fact that happened also was an indictment on the conference, because every elite team from Duke to Carolina to Kentucky, they all have years where they probably shouldn't win the conference. The fact that you go in 17 straight years winning the conference, again, it's kind of an indictment. Now, again, some of these teams had really nice stretches. Your West Virginias or your, Oklahoma State's a bad example. But schools like that, but nobody really maintained. And the only time I ever looked at another program and said they're elite for a couple year period was Baylor. Sure. In that, in the early 2020s, they were elite. They were on that next level. But that was really the only one that I ever thought was a legitimate, viable national title contender. And again, it's a compliment, but, you bring in Houston. Nobody's used to with the physicality and the girth that Houston brought when they entered the Big 12. And now, Arizona comes in, and I think a lot of people thought they'd be kind of that sleek Ferrari, but at the same time, they can out physical you. They can beat you up in the way they want. And like I said, it's a much different conference now for sure. And it's a much better conference because, like you said, I think outside of Kansas, there were some cool little stories, but there was nothing that was sustainable.
So you mentioned the physicality, the toughness, whatever. By the way, Mike Luke, AZ12 Wildcats podcast, Arizona's your Big 12 outright champions. He's joining me here right now. So let me then ask you this, is you mentioned the quote unquote soft factor. Seemed to be a narrative that Tommy Lloyd was very aware of. He addressed it after the game. We have the sound. We won't play it, but people could go back and listen. We played it earlier. I guess, was this something that was weighing on the staff and the program? He seemed kind of coming after people after the game on Monday night.
Well, I mean, there's a national guy that has thrown a lot of arrows at Arizona that he pretty much called out after the first game of the season when he went on the show. But yeah, I mean, I think it's annoying to him, and I think it's a double-edged sword, or not a double-edged sword. One of Tommy's things is he's a really nice dude. He's a down-to-earth guy. He's the guy that you could just see at the tavern down the street drinking a beer and playing Scrabble or something like that. But I think that he resents the fact that people take kind of the nice guy persona as being soft. And he said going into the year, and we, Sheer and I sat down with a member of the staff and had lunch, and they said that our priority going into this year was to be more physical than every team we played, to have a better defense than every team we play, and not just say it, but mean it. And our goal is to every single game, we're going to out-rebound you and want to shoot more free throws than you. And there was a stat that I think Arizona shot 219 more free throws than their opponents or something like that. It's a crazy stat. And the way they defend last year when they were playing Iowa State, basically the idea was, all right, well, we'll just let Momcilovic just shoot threes wide open and hopefully he'll miss. Well, he didn't miss. This year, you're actually trying to guard him. It's like I said, it's a tougher, different brand of basketball, but it's also a brand too where you don't have a lot of weaknesses. You don't look at Arizona and say, man, they better hope they stay away from that team or that team. They match up pretty well with about any team in the country.
Yeah, this was something I joined your show yesterday, and I think you opened my eyes to, and I mentioned it before you came on. I actually think they're better built to win than any team in the country. Now, you can argue that doesn't mean they're the favorite, doesn't mean they should be the betting favorite, and I'm not putting that juju on Arizona that it's like title or bust, but we talked about Michigan's backcourt on your show. Duke still, I think Duke, listen, I actually think Duke is good. We're going to talk about it in a minute, and I know it's easy to kind of crush on Duke. They're so good defensively, but I do wonder if somebody can get hot against them. Do they have that second guy? It just feels like Arizona, it feels like every spot of the starting five can get you 20 on a different night, plus the 2 or 3 guys off the bench. I actually think they're probably built in a more complete way than anybody in college basketball right now.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think come the NCAA tournament, and again, a lot of people think I'm stupid. I don't think I am on this one. But I believe that the teams that are obsessed with shooting, I believe that's a little overrated because come March, everybody has a game where they can't hit the broadside of a barn. Arizona's had that happen before, and they didn't have a counter move. When you play this kind of style, it's kind of a little bit like the old Jim Calhoun UConn teams where you're going into a lineup or a game where you got Hilton Armstrong and Mecca Okafor. Yeah, and guys like that, man, when in doubt, we're going to play volleyball at the rim and we're going to beat you that way. Arizona just doesn't really have a huge weakness, in my opinion. And I think it kind of crystallized in the fact that we were talking on the show about how does Arizona's front court match up with Michigan's front court? Because obviously Michigan's got a great front court as well. And then, we're talking about it going back and forth. And then and then I started looking at Arizona's backcourt, and I can't believe I never thought about this. I don't know that there's a better backcourt in all of college basketball. And we were just talking about how good the front court was and how it compared to Michigan. And then you just kind of compare both of them, and there's just not a ton of weaknesses on this team. And like you correctly noted, they look like they're having fun. You can tell they're having fun. And Tommy in the presser last night said that, this has been a very enjoyable season, and it's the players that have made it. So everybody's on. It's good vibes. They're healthy, knock on wood. But, so far so good, Torres.
You mentioned Tommy Lloyd would be a guy that's playing Scrabble at the tavern. I think you probably meant, ping pong or pool or shuffleboard. What is he like? And it's funny. I'll shout out our buddy Steve Lopez. Like he's like, why don't you think that Tommy gets the credit he deserves? And I feel like it's just because he's so quiet and so low key that he just and I was telling somebody this is like, he doesn't do a lot of national stuff. He doesn't need to be in the media. I've even put in requests for him, and, very respectfully, the social media or the media relations at Arizona has just been like, he doesn't really do a lot of other interviews. And so I'd just be curious, it just feels like to me, he's just a guy and I will say too, I think he's found kind of his voice on some of the important issues in college basketball. But I just bring it up because it just feels like he's a guy that just a lot of people don't know a lot about, even on a national level.
Well, I mean, think about it this way. This guy was the coach in waiting for Mark Few for a long time at Gonzaga. I had heard the name. I had no clue who he was when Arizona hired him. Sure. So, he's been in a prominent spot, but not a lot. But I think that's by design, to be honest with you. I think he likes living in Tucson. I think he likes being there. I don't think he's a big city fishbowl type of guy. And it's a great question as to why he doesn't get more. I think maybe part of it is because he's not super demonstrative. He's not going out and doing 35 interviews or basically saying, why aren't we getting the credit or love that we deserve or anything like that. I think he's very much of a guy that I think he's a quiet guy. I also think he's an introspective guy, though, in that after every season, there's been something that they've had an issue with that you've had to come back and he's had to be able to correct. And, after the second year, he needed guys that could get the make plays off the bounce. That was the team where you had, Kirk Risa and Courtney Ramey and Cedric Henderson. That just wasn't going to cut it. Then the next year after Caleb Love comes in, they need to get tougher. And then so last year after that, they needed to find ways that they could score around the basket. He's done all of that. And the one thing I will say that has been kind of a fly in his ointment early on, but not anymore, was that I think he was, I don't think Tommy is necessarily huge on confrontation. And, there were some players that probably got away with stuff that they shouldn't have been doing. But I think at the same time, though, when he started recruiting players, he wanted to be able to have guys that fit into a template that he wouldn't have to self-police. And I'll give you a perfect example. And this is not a shot at the kid at all, because by all accounts, he's a really good kid. Tommy could have basically chose between Braden Burries and Elijah Arenas. And that was very much of a, that was a hot button issue here in Tucson. And I was, whatever Tommy decided, I was cool with there. But I think a lot of it was that he just didn't want to have to deal with some of the outside stuff that comes into it, whereas Braden Burries is just here to play ball. And I think he goes to great lengths to avoid distractions. And I think that's the way he handles it in his personal life too. And that might be why he's not as the sexy figure that everybody wants for an interview.
Very interesting. By the way, I think I said Steve Lopez earlier. My boy, Steve Rivera. I'm so sorry, Steve. I love Steve. He's right up there with Mike Luke as my two favorite people to see whenever I'm at an Arizona game. So sorry to Steve Rivera.
Right, well,
a couple other things we'll let you go. What time is your show today, by the way, the AZ12 pod?
We're going on at 2:00. We're pushing it back a little bit since it was a late game last night. Yeah. We got to do a test run somewhere else. No, not a late night. I wish. But I'm going to say this though. The game went a little late, and after a late game, I'm pretty amped, and it takes me forever to get to sleep.
Well, especially a Big 12 title. Yeah. A lot of champagne, I'm sure. So that's okay.
When you're that cat hanging out in the front yard, man, sooner or later you got to get a little bit of
I was gonna say, probably running around the living room popping champagne. That's okay. I don't really have a ton else. I mean, I guess I asked you this on your show, and I don't want to really end on a negative note, but we know the history with Arizona, and even on my show, and I don't talk to Arizona fans every day like you do, but I know the history. It's been 25 years, which is crazy because I'll say that, like, I haven't really put this much thought into it. I can't think of a team that has been like more consistently like excellent. Like, I'm not talking about peaks and flows, ebbs and valleys. Like, I'm talking about awesome for basically the last 25 years that clearly has not been to a Final Four. Now, they've been on the cusp a million times. I always defend Sean Miller. 3 Elite Eights? I was at the game against Wisconsin, the first one where you easily could have won. You could have beaten Kemba and all them. But 25 years since you've been to the Final Four, and then obviously 29 years since you've won the title in 97. Is there, like, there's always going to be pressure, especially as a number 1 seed, but like, what would you be saying on your show the day after the tournament or the day after the Elite Eight or whatever, if Arizona did not at least make a Final Four? Then once you get there, whatever happens. But
yeah, I mean, this team, in my opinion, they got to get to the Final Four. I'm not a Final Four bust guy because I think once you get to the Elite Eight, a million different things can happen. But this team's built for March. You're healthy. And how many times do you see something where you look at a team and you're like, all right, I don't think they're really built for March, or they just lost their point guard or whatever the case may be. Arizona's got everything going for them. You go into the and listen, if you're playing a 2 seed like I don't even know, it's like a Michigan State or something, you should be able to.
You better beat
Michigan
State. You yourself, no one is more anti-Big Ten than you are. So if you guys lose to Michigan State, I'm actually worried for your own personal mental health.
Yeah. It's one of those things. Michigan State, I always give a little bit of I kind of put them in like their own little tier a little bit because of Izzo, because, they always seem to overachieve come March. But yeah, we lose to a Big Ten team, no good. Now, if you lose to Michigan in the national title game, so be it. But overall, though, I am not going to sit here and say that losing the Elite Eight will be things that people will embrace. How about that?
No, totally understand. One thing I would say is,
real quick, I wanted to ask you a national question.
Let me ask me a national question. Go ahead.
All right. And again, you're a national guy, so I don't want you to burn anything here. So you can watching Kansas. They're a very good team. Don't get me wrong. But is Self going to be able to get this thing back? Because that's more of a top 15 team. You look at who they have coming in, and I know Tyran Stokes might go there, but he could also go to Kentucky. Do you see Bill Self having a top 5 program again in that, where you're consistently in that?
It's funny. We're going to talk Tyran Stokes after you leave here, because now he's flirting with he's back to flirting with Kentucky again. And I think it's all an NIL pull. It's a great question. My only thought is I don't, but I think it's more of a byproduct of the league being awesome. Look, and I'll defend him. I'll actually defend him. And I've defended him on this show is, 2 seasons ago, I was all in on the, going heavy on the portal, and they brought in AJ Store and they're going to be awesome and blah, blah, blah. And they weren't. And I thought he had lost his fastball. And then they basically did nothing of super note in the portal last year. And it turns out, Flory Badunga is actually going to be awesome with another season under Bill Self. Bryson Tiller is this dude that we don't know, who I think is going to play in the NBA one day. And then like the big quote unquote portal get was Melvin Council that no one knew was this good. Right.
Right.
I don't think so, because I don't think the league, like we were talking about it earlier, like I could see them winning a Big 12 regular season title. I could see them, I don't think he's going to be there 5 more years, but if he's there 5 more years, I could see him winning 2 out of 5. I could see him winning 2 Big 12 tournaments along. But I think so much of their success, I think it really was that the league wasn't that good. Like, it just was. Yeah. And, the thing is too, like, and I think we've seen it this year in the Big 12, is that it's not just that, like, the top wasn't as good with Houston and Arizona and teams like that. It's that I think, like the bottom, like the middle and bottom, they were so much better than everybody else, where like this year you see, like, if you're playing Arizona, Texas Tech, even when they're not healthy, apparently, Arizona, Texas Tech, Iowa State, or Houston, it's just an auto loss, right? And like, I think it makes us like all reevaluate, like, okay, is TCU actually not terrible? And we just don't realize it, right, because they have 8 games against probably, 8 of the, 8 games against the 7 best teams in the country, So I just bring it up because that to me is the issue more than anything. I'll tell you the one that I actually find interesting is Houston and Kelvin Sampson, because they've always been like 60-year dudes, just beat you up, whatever. And they clearly raised some money. They went the one and done route with Sinak. He's fine, but whatever. I think, listen, I'm not trying to bash a kid, but like, I think Kingston Flemings is so overrated. Like, I think he's perfectly fine. I think he'll be a good NBA player. I don't see top 5 first point guard off the board, or first point guard, if you include Darren Peterson, off the board. And it's like, and they got 2 more 5-stars coming in next year. And it's like, I don't know for him that that's the way to do it. I think you need like 23-year-old dudes that are just going to run through a wall that probably won't play in the NBA. And so that's the one that I'm kind of interested about. I'll tell you this. I think the Big 12 is just fascinating, right? Because you have those two. Go ahead. What are you saying?
Yeah, the thing that's interesting too about Houston is that, everybody's talking about, losing Cryer and stuff. The bigger loss for them was Jawan Roberts, because Jawan Roberts was everything that Houston wanted to do. He was the embodiment. Him and Jamal Shed are always the 2 players that I'm going to always think about when I think of Kelvin Sampson's Houston teams. Not necessarily with Roberts, not necessarily the best, but he did everything for them. Tough, gritty rebounder. You could dump the ball into the post and he could make some baskets. I mean, he had a couple game-winning shots last year, if I'm not mistaken. I think Central Florida, maybe. But he was able to do that. You can't do that with Sinak. Like, he's going to shoot some threes. He's going to play more of a finesse style. And sure, he might be getting 10-6 or whatever his numbers are, but it's not the impactful 10-6 or 12-7 that a guy like Jawan Roberts had. I agree with you, man. Some people are just better getting their own brand of basketball player. And I think that's him. I mean, you got 3 5-star kids you brought in this past year. Flemings is good. Harwell hasn't done anything really. And then Sinak is good, but I mean, I agree with you. I think that he needs to kind of get back to what he's doing. That being said, they're still a top 10 team. So it's like,
I'll be curious once the tournament starts with them, because I think, from my perspective, like, he did have the quote, and I think he's probably right, when after he lost the 3 games in a row, he was asked about it. He's like, honestly, it's a byproduct of the league being good more than us being bad. And like, I do agree with that. But I don't think that they're built to make a run like last year. So
I don't either. I could see them losing. I could see them losing in the Sweet 16. I mean, it feels like a team that they get there, and let's say you're a 3 seed or something, you come across a 2. I mean, that being said, they could win that game as well. But I agree with you. It doesn't feel like a team that was built for March. Also, and while Flemings is good, in the past, you kind of had a guy that in last year was kind of Uzon, who's obviously fallen off, but you always had kind of a guy that could do a little bit for you. I just don't know who that guy is in a crunch spot right now. I guess it's Flemings, but, or Sharp, but Sharp's more still of a spot-up shooter. So it's going to be fascinating to see how they do. I'm rooting for him because I like him, but yeah, I have questions about them.
By the way, can I say this? You know what I love about Arizona fans, and I think I will get back out to Tucson next year. Now, the UConn game in November is going to be tough. Arizona fans are just ball knowers, like you're just spitting out, Houston takes on a Tuesday here. Like it's nothing, and there's a lot of fan bases that like, if their team's good, they're sort of invested. But I was watching last night and I was like, I don't know how many real basketball schools that we have left. I think, whatever. Arizona's clearly one, Kansas is one, UConn's one, Kentucky, whatever. But Arizona's very clearly a basketball school. I know you guys are coming off a 9-win football season. No big deal. But yeah, I was watching. I was like, that place loves basketball. I got to get back there. So anything else, by the way, Matt, you could pop up. We had a couple tweets sent your way. Let's see, or it's a couple comments in the chat. Duke versus Zona in the title game. I mean, I told you this on your show. I need to see a freaking bracket. And actually, I actually, this is going to sound crazy. I think Duke's really good. We're going to talk about them when you get off air here. I think if Michigan played them again, I would take Michigan. I mean, Michigan had to, and I don't have the stats in front of me, Michigan had to have 2 of their bigs in foul trouble with a questionable whistle and shoot like 7 of 32 from 3 or something like that. So I would actually say it's Michigan and Arizona, and I actually might say it's Arizona and Florida. By the way, really quick, do you have you saw Florida in person. They're clearly better. Like, who do you think is the team that matches up better with Arizona than anybody? Yeah,
Florida.
I agree.
Because here's what happened. I think Florida was overrated to start the preseason, And then I think people dramatically underrated them very, very quickly. They lost by a few points to Arizona. They lost by a few points to Duke. And so, it's kind of this snowball effect where people just start looking at the wins and losses and they're like, oh, they're 6-4. Never mind the fact that 4 of those, 3 or 4 of those losses were against top 5 teams where, you lost by 2 or 3. I think Florida's awesome. I think Golden's a great coach. I think they're another team that, now that their backcourt started playing a little bit better, they're a problem because their front court, everybody knows how good it is. And like I said, if Flan and if Xavier and Lee can just be solid, I mean, they're a real problem. And so Florida to me is that whatever bracket Florida is in, I will probably pick Florida to come out of that bracket. That is not the 2 that you want to see if you're a 1
Yeah, that was my takeaway watching them against Arkansas the other night. Is like, imagine being the team that, you put your roster together in June and, you're running wind sprints in June, getting ready for March, and you're a number 1 seed, and you're like, shit, man, we got Florida as our number 2 seed. So,
right, exactly. I mean, they're good, and they're another team too. They don't have a lot of weaknesses.
Yeah. I'll be curious. I think if they run the table, they have 2 pretty managers. They play at Rupp on Saturday, so maybe that's a little bit tough. But I think if they run the table, they probably maybe end up with the 4th number 1. We'll see.
But yeah. I can see that. I can see that for sure. I mean, I still think UConn's kind of in the driver's seat for that. But, I mean, who knows? The problem with UConn's got a little bit of the issue that Arizona had in the Pac-12 for all those years. I think it's just a lot of these games, I think it's just hard to get up for, where you're like, you're just playing kind of crummy teams where not a lot of people are there. And these are still 18, 19-year-old kids. So I'm more bullish on UConn than the great Aaron Torres.
Man. Yeah, no, and it might be just a little PTSD from watching them win every game being like a 6-point game with 3 minutes to go. And you're like, dude, you're playing Butler. Can you just for once kick some ass? And they did. They destroyed, obviously, St. John's. And the game before that against Nova, they were good. So I think the Big East tournament is going to be very telling for them. I was telling you, like, I think I said it before when you were on air. I was just talking to my neighbor, just like a very unfulfilling season. Like, it's just the team's kind of fans are bored by the team. Hurley's mad. They keep winning. And like, I think it's a thing where like he felt like they weren't getting enough credit, but he also feels like he sort of in the back of his head knows. And then the team, like, it's just a weird vibe. So
how do we get Bobby Hurley to Stores for next year? Is that a possibility?
No, please keep him. Let him do whatever he wants. Let him go play golf for a few years. Maybe John Shire will bring him on staff. You never know. So associate assistant, head coach of whatever. But all right, I'll tell you what, Mike Luke, AZ12 Wildcats podcast. You're live at 11 Central, so about an hour from, or 11 Mount. Dude, Arizona. I think Arizona, for people who don't know, is the one state that doesn't have standard time or daylight savings. So I never know what time it is there. I don't know if you're Pacific or Mountain or Central or whatever.
Right now it's 9:53. We're an hour ahead of you guys. So we'll be on at 2, so 1 your time.
All right. We'll be tuning in. Enjoy the celebration. I appreciate you joining, and we'll do it again soon, buddy. Okay.
You're the man, Torres. You're the I was going to say you're the de facto mayor of Tucson.
Can you guys just make a Final Four so we can all hang out together, please?
No, I plan on being in Indianapolis, so yeah. Ooey pooey.
All right, IUPUI. We'll be doing some shows there. All right. Thank you, Mike. We'll talk soon, buddy. Bye. All
right, talk to you soon. Thanks again, buddy.
I actually think it's IU Indy, by the way. I don't know. He keeps saying IUPUI. All right, so what we're going to do, we're going to take a quick break, come back, get to some of your questions, some of your comments, and then do quickly want to talk Duke, and I referenced another weird Tyran Stokes story. We'll address that. Don't know what's going on there. Quick break. Be right back. All right, we're going to get back to the show in a minute, but before we do, I have so many people that reach out and say, Torres, you give me hours and hours and hours of free content every day, every month, every year. What can I do to help support the show? Well, you want to support the show and look good in the process. Make sure to check out and support the Aaron Torres Media merch store at aarontorresonline.com/merchandise. Some of you wondering, what can I get in that merch store, Torres? Well, Kentucky fans, we got our Mark Pope Hope and Pope t-shirts. That is right. Mark Pope, monster first year. Year 2 is going to be even better. Get your Hope and Pope t-shirt at aarontorresonline.com/merchandise. Arkansas fans, the big pig invasion is coming. It is here. John Calipari has things rocking. Get your Big Pig Invasion tees. Again, AaronTorresOnline.com/merchandise. St. John's fans, we have our Big Rick Energy t-shirts. And if you're just a college basketball fan in general, guess what? Your March is for Day Drinking shirt. That is the shirt that you need year-round, but especially for the next NCAA tournament. You can order yours now. By the way, football fans, we got you covered too. Nebraska fans, new era, new rules, the t-shirt that you need before the start of this coming season. And oh, by the way, if you're a Colorado fan, if you're just a Coach Prime fan, we have our Dion shirts and hats, more of them than we know what to do with. So to check out the full line of Aaron Torres Media merch and also support the show, good news is we're going to have even more for the fall. Check out the Aaron Torres Media merch store at AaronTorresOnline.com/merchandise. And for more information, you can always reach out at Aaron Torres Podcast Questions at gmail.com. All right, everybody. I am back. Good to be back. A couple quick things. One, it was mentioned in that little live stream there, but March is for day drinking. This is the shirt you need. You're going to be sitting there. You're going to be at the bar. You're going to be hanging with your boys. You're going to be watching wall-to-wall basketball morning, noon, and night. March is for day drinking. Get it at AaronTorresOnline.com/shop. AaronTorresOnline.com/shop. Or you could just click that little QR code and you can get it right here, right now. March is for a couple beers. All right. Let's go ahead and switch gears. Do want to get to the other big game on Monday. And rather than teeing it up, let's just start with Mike's comment from the chat. Torres, Duke is now up to 40.88 at Ken Palm, comfortably above Michigan, who's 39.5, and Arizona 37.63. Tread lightly on the Duke hate today. They don't need a second guy. They're an unselfish, well-oiled machine. So that's a great way to jump into a Duke conversation. There will be no Duke hate today, and there will be no Duke slander because Duke went to NC State on Monday night. Admittedly, NC State is struggling. I think Will Wade is frustrated. He hasn't quite figured out this team yet. But I bring it up to say it wouldn't have mattered on Monday night because Duke put together what was quite literally maybe, is it fair to say, maybe the best performance of the season. Complete domination on both ends of the court in a hostile environment. I don't know if you consider NC State a rival or not. I don't want to get yelled at by Duke fans. But final score in Raleigh, North Carolina, it was a butt kicking, okay? Final score in this one, the Duke Blue Devils take care of business 93-64 in this game. So let's go ahead and talk about it. You know, a couple things stand out. First of all, offensively, same story as it's always been. Cam Boozer, just unbelievable, like he always is. Finishes the game not only with 26 points, but, you know, the efficiency is just preposterous. 26 points on 8 of 10 shooting from the field, 9 of 11 from the free throw line with 9 rebounds. By the way, as we start talking about him as the definitive National Player of the Year, I don't think his passing gets enough credit. 4 assists in this game for Cam Boozer. He's averaging 4 assists to go with almost 23 points and 10 boards per game. He has been not only as good as expected, but I think even better than expected. And then we got to give John Shire credit. That's what I meant to say, I swear. You know, the team is just so well built around him. I know the conversation, as Mike referenced in the chat, is do they have a second guy, which we'll get into in a minute. But they got a lot of guys that can do a lot of different things. Pat Gongba had 11 points in this one. Dame Sarr, who he's actually my favorite player to watch on this team, 16 points, 8 boards. Isaiah Evans, 12 points and 2 rebounds, also hit 4 3-pointers. But here is the thing about Duke that absolutely separates them from a lot of teams pretty much. There's a lot of teams that have a good, one-and-done player, great one-and-done player, whatever. A lot of guys that have a lot of talent on the squad. What they do defensively is just absolutely unbelievable. Finish this game holding NC State to 35% shooting from the field, 24% shooting from 3. And then, oh, by the way, they also out-rebounded them by 11. When you out-rebound a team by 11 and hold them to 35% shooting from the field, 24% shooting from 3, guess what? That's how you end up beating somebody that's going to be an NCAA tournament team by darn near gets the win. With it, a couple things. And one, I know Mike thinks that I'm going to criticize Duke here. It's actually the exact opposite, okay? And I tweeted this out on Monday night. Matt, you can hold the tweet for half a second. I'll tell you when to pop it up. But one thing about Duke that really stands out to me, one, Shire is unbelievable. I mean, listen, at this point, if you can't acknowledge that this guy is awesome, it's not Duke, it's not the brand. Like, listen, you can't just say it's the brand when we're talking about the fact that, you know, we're coming off of a season where, you know, a year ago, Kansas was the number one team in the country and didn't make it out of the first weekend. Kentucky has been up and down. UCLA has certainly been up and down. North Carolina has been up and down, has missed the tournament recently. So stop telling me it's only because Jon Scheyer is the head coach at Duke, and let's acknowledge that he is awesome and very good at what he does. And what I think really stands out to me about Jon Scheyer is the fact that he does it in a way that I am told you can't do it in 2026, right? And I was thinking about this, is that, listen, college basketball, it's March, it's at center stage, and you know, somebody like me who's in the media, you're just talking to people all over the sport, right? Coaches, ADs, assistant coaches, whatever. And as a lot of these jobs start to kind of open, you know, you kind of sit there and like, who's the right fit and what makes sense and how do you want to build a team and blah, 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 and this and that. And I was thinking about this. The way Jon Scheyer is doing it is the way we're told you can't do it anymore. They obviously go heavy on freshmen. 3 freshmen, you know, really 4 that contribute on this team if you include Caden Boozer. But really good freshman class. And then, oh, by the way, hold on one second. Just want to make sure I didn't miss anything. Hold on, I just got an interesting text. Oh, is this accurate? Hold on one sec. Somebody just tweeted out that Mitch Barnhart, the AD of Kentucky, is retiring. Okay, we will react to that after. Matt, you can cut all this out later. All right, let's focus back in on Duke, okay? So the thing about Duke that stands out is the fact that basically when I look at this team is that Jon Scheyer is doing it in a way that I am told you can't do it in 2026. I am told you can't recruit freshmen. Well, Dame Sarr's awesome. Cam Boozer's awesome. Caden Boozer's awesome. Whatever. I am told you can't get freshmen to buy in 1 year. They're here, one and done. Darren Peterson, is he load managing? Is he not? Everybody's bought in. Well, you can't get them to play defense. Best defensive team in college basketball right now. And they just play hard and they compete and they show up every night and they this and they that. And now, Matt, you can go ahead and pop up the tweet. I said it. I said, look, I know it's not cool to say about Duke on Twitter, but Jon Scheyer does everything people say that you cannot do in 2026. He recruits elite freshmen. He gets them to compete on both ends. And oh, by the way, he wins at just an insane level as well. Heck of a coach. Duke is 28-3. So one, I actually think Jon Scheyer has been so impressive. Listen, we may have to have the conversation. I don't know that I'm there yet about the possibility of, is it possible that Duke upgraded at coach once Coach K retired? I don't know. All I do know is Coach K did not have this program operating the way that Jon Scheyer has, specifically the last 2 years, but really even the year before they made the Elite Eight and were going to go to a Final Four. So there's that part of it. I think the other part that's more interesting is we talk about teams this time of year, NCAA tournament. Are they built to win it all? And not only are they built to win it all, but on top of that, is it possible that because they are clearly built to win it all, is it possible that they might actually be better built to win this year than last year? And I brought up a few weeks ago, I said, this team, I don't know if they're better, they're different, but I said, I think there's a possibility. I saw an interesting tweet from a guy by the name of Isaac Trotter of CBS Sports. Okay, so Isaac Trotter does a really good job, and he kind of gets in the weeds, and he's very analytical. He does a very good job. Matt, you could pop up the tweet. Because he said, listen, this was after the game on Monday night. He said, Cooper Flagg is a better player than Cam Boozer. I understand why the analytics disagree, which I don't know what that means. I don't know if the analytics are saying that Cam Boozer's better. I don't know, whatever. He said, Cooper Flagg is a better player than Cam Boozer. But Boozer as the fulcrum of an offense is more of a cheat code offensively than Cooper Flagg. Boozer is a destroyer. Doubling him is a problem. Zone is a problem. Solo coverage is a problem. I'll tell you what. One, certainly the first time we've ever used the word fulcrum on this show. It's a big dictionary word that Torres, not really in my wheelhouse. But two, on top of that, I think it's a very interesting question. Does Cam Boozer actually make Duke tougher than Cooper Flagg had his team a year ago? And Cooper Flagg's great, and this isn't going to be one of those like Cooper Flagg wasn't good last year. Cooper Flagg was unbelievable. And Cooper Flagg, I think, is going to be an incredible NBA player because of the way he defends, his size, his athleticism, whatever. But at the same time, I think it's an interesting concept because, one, Duke is great defensively. I thought it was interesting on the broadcast. They were openly talking about, like, they have more than one player that could be ACC Defensive Player of the Year on this team. Malik Brown's a great defender. Dame Sarr's a great defender. Cam Boozer is good in the paint, whatever. Gongba's obviously a great rim protector, etc. But two, not only are they great defensively, but what exactly is the perfect blueprint to beat them? Because Cam Boozer's going to get his 25 and 12. And it's funny, you're going to sit there and say, well, what happens when they play good teams in the tournament? Okay, well, let's go back to what Cam Boozer did during the regular season against the best front courts in America. 18, 10, and 7 against Michigan. 29, 6, and 2 against Florida. 18, 15, and 5 against Michigan State. I think Cam Boozer is going to be fine no matter who Duke matches up with. But then I thought Isaac Trotter brought up an interesting point. How do you handle them? If you try to double Cam Boozer, guess what? You got shooting and spacing all over the floor. If you try to go zone on them, they can shoot their way out of it. If you leave Cam Boozer single covered, then you have a situation where all of a sudden Cam Boozer can go for, instead of 24 and 12, he can go for 31 and 16. So I think it's going to be fascinating. And I still think at the end of the day, it's about Cam Boozer, but it's about the defense. This team, I think is, again, I don't know that they're better than last year, but I do think it becomes an interesting conversation of how do you defend them. Can't single cover Cam Boozer, but if you double him, he's such a good passer, 4 assists a game, that it sets up a very interesting conversation. All right, Matt, this is what we're going to do. Take a quick break for half a second. We'll come back. I want to talk Mitch Barnhart, the UK Kentucky AD retiring. So hopefully, Matt, you maybe have a Kentucky graphic. If not, it's not a huge deal. That's fine. We're going to come back and talk about that. Then we are going to talk also about Tyran Stokes, #1 high school player in America, the recruitment that not only will never end, but it is just starting. Quick break. Be right back. All right, we're going to get back to the show in a minute. But before we do, you know what we got to do. We got to thank our friends. We got to thank our partners. We got to go ahead and thank Collie Puffs and ColliePuffs.com. Yeah, you see the logo on the back of the screen right here. Okay, so I've told you all about Collie Puffs, but family-owned company, not far from where I live. Joey, a huge sports fan. And one day he was sitting on the couch and he said, you know what? I need a snack that is both healthy but delicious, something my kids are going to love, something my family's going to love, something I'm going to love. And so he came up with Collie Puffs. This is the new age health food snack. You don't need to go to the grocery aisle and buy all that crap, the Doritos, the Fritos. No, my friends, you need Collie Puffs. Baked, not fried, avocado oil, no grease, healthy ingredients. But here's the best part. They taste freaking delicious. Actually, there's another best part. In addition to tasting delicious, in addition to being healthy, they are also taking care of listeners of the Aaron Torres pod. Okay, so check this out. All you got to do is go to ColliePuffs.com. That's CAULIPUFFS.com, ColliePuffs.com, and you can get 15% off any purchase with the promo code Torres. That's Torres, Torres. It's that simple. 15% off any purchase. 1 bag to try them out, 100 bags to cater a party. Doesn't really matter. Promo code Torres. ColliePuffs.com gets you 15% off. Collie Puffs also available on Amazon. You obviously can't get the promo code there, but ColliePuffs.com, ColliePuffs.com, promo code Torres gets you 15% off any purchase. Thank you to our friends at Collie Puffs. All right, everybody. I'm back. Good to be back. Good to be back. Final segment or two of the show. So good to be back. What started as a slow Tuesday morning, we got Mike Luke. Now we got late breaking news. let's go ahead and dive into it because it just came down the pipe minutes ago. Mitch Barnhart, the AD at the University of Kentucky, is reportedly set to retire. It looks like Pete Nakos was the first one. I saw Matt Jones, Kentucky Sports Radio, hinting at it. And I will say, it certainly looks like one of the, there's only 16 SEC AD jobs. This is a big one. And I'll tell you this, it looks like it's about to change hands. We'll talk about who could potentially be next. Let's go ahead and discuss. First of all, Mitch Barnhart, not a surprise that he's set to retire, and it's for a few obvious reasons. The first one, I hate to say it in such a crass way, guy's old. Like, he's been around forever, okay? So, let's put this in perspective, okay? John Calipari was hired in 2009 as the Kentucky basketball head coach. It was Mitch Barnhart's second AD hire, okay? Or second basketball hire. He hired Billy Gillispie a few years earlier, not even interviewing John Calipari. And this isn't like a crush Mitch Barnhart thing, but he hired Billy Gillispie, has to fire him, hires John Calipari, goes through 15 years with John Calipari. And then, oh, by the way, on top of that, he also then has to hire Mark Pope and whatever. So he's been around forever. You knew he wasn't going to be around forever. And then I think what became very clear during football season was just that he wasn't going to be around forever. It was ebbs and flows with Mark Stoops. He obviously started really slow, had those 2 or 3 weeks where, they won games. They won at Auburn. They beat Florida. They played Texas really tough. And you thought Mark Stoops might survive. And part of the reason that you thought Mark Stoops might survive was because there was talk of Mitch Barnhart's going to retire after this season. He doesn't want to fire his good buddy. Can Mark Stoops do enough to keep the job? Now, I give Mitch Barnhart credit because by the end of the season, it was clear, as the old saying goes, what must be done tomorrow should be done today or whatever. It was clear Mark Stoops could not come back. And so even if this guy knew he was retiring, I give him credit because it was clear the coaching change needed to be made. But there was talk of can Stoops do enough where he gets through this season and then Mitch Barnhart can get out so that you can get a new AD in so you have a full year to evaluate Mark Stoops. So I am not surprised that Mitch Barnhart is retiring. And I'm also not surprised because, listen, this is a little bit in the weeds, but I do think it's important for any fan of any college to kind of look at and discuss is the world of college sports is changing really quick, right? And Mitch Barnhart, I just looked it up, is in his mid-60s. He's been around for a while. Let's give him credit for surviving the way that he has. And there's been a lot of success. Best run of Kentucky football in my life under Mitch Barnhart. National championship in basketball under Mitch Barnhart, okay? But the world is changing quick, and it feels like Kentucky has been one of those really slow schools to adapt to NIL. And I think, we've talked about this a million times, but I think when NIL came in, I think there were 2 schools of thought about how to handle it. There was one, the Miami, Tennessee with Nico Iamaleava. It's just, hey, we can pay them, raise a bunch of money, buy players, and we'll figure out how we break, whether it's breaking the rules or not later. And then there was the Kentucky side. I think Alabama football fell into this. I think Ohio State football for a while fell into this until Ryan Day put together that $20 million roster. There was this notion of there's going to be rules at some point. There's going to be enforcement at some point. So let's take our time. Let's not rush into it. And Kentucky fans would know better than me, but it felt like Kentucky kind of fell behind in NIL. And it certainly hasn't been helped the last couple months that there's this JMI. For people who don't know, JMI handles a lot of the in-game promotion and in-stadium promotion. If you see, I always say, if you see a Dunkin' Donuts sign in a Kentucky at Rupp Arena or whatever, it's not Kentucky, somebody from the athletic department calling up Dunkin' Donuts corporate. JMI is the company that works with that does all that for you. But it has become an issue because JMI handles a lot of the NIL deals as well. And this has become a big topic of conversation with Kentucky fans of what do we do about the fact that, these high school basketball superstars. They don't want to, only work with certain brands because JMI has to approve of them. We did a big segment on this probably November, December of this year, but it's become a big topic because Kentucky has struggled in high school recruiting. We're going to talk Tyran Stokes in a minute. But there was a player named Christian Collins, 5-star, that appeared set to commit to Kentucky. And then all of a sudden he's like, I got to sign all this paperwork that says that I can't work with these brands and I have to work with these brands. And he's like, no. I'm a 5-star. I can make a lot of money off the court. I'm not doing it. And so I only bring it up because it just feels like Mitch Barnhart, as the sports and college sports in general has changed around him. He's done a very, slow job, bad job of adapting. And that doesn't even, account for the fact that we're still trying to figure out if Mark Pope is the right coach at Kentucky or not. I'm not going to go there right now. I'll give Mark Pope the benefit of the doubt. They play Texas A&M tonight. Let's assume they win, and let's not even get into that conversation, okay? And so to me, this is how we get into the situation where Mitch Barnhart, the AD, retires. He's getting older, fell behind in NIL, and then NIL is changing. And by the way, it's not even his fault, but NIL is changing every 6 months. It's a new thing. And I think it's kind of funny. It's a lot like hiring coaches, right? I think it's very telling that in this past football cycle, nobody wanted to hire the old guys. Brian Kelly gets fired at LSU. He clearly wants to coach again. Nobody even sniffs around him. Jimbo Fisher wants to coach again. Nobody hires him because you have these old guys that are used to doing it the way that things were done 20 years ago. You can't do it that way anymore. And so I keep saying, if I was an AD or if I was hiring a football or basketball coach, give me the young guy. Give me the John Shire. Give me the John Summerall, the Florida football coach. Give me the Will Stein, who accepts this is the new world. We have to figure it out. We have to work within the confines of this new world, or there's nothing we can do. And I think it's kind of the same with ADs, is if you're kind of whatever, and you're, if you're operating from a playbook from 20 years ago, you just can't operate that way in 2026. And so to me, this move isn't surprising. And I think as far as who could potentially be next, that's where it gets interesting. And listen, there has been one name that certainly has kind of emerged to the surface through the years, knowing that this change might be made. It's a guy by the name of Dwayne Peevy. So for people who don't know Dwayne Peevy's background, he was at Kentucky forever. He was John Calipari's right-hand man forever. And it's worth noting, he got the DePaul AD job about 5 or 6 years ago. He's been there about 5 or 6 years. DePaul's pretty good at basketball. They might be like the 4th, 5th seed. He nailed the Chris Holtmann hire. Now, he hired Tony Stubblefield before then. I'll tell a quick side story. I don't know how many people know this. Dwayne Peevy gets the job. He has a basketball hire to make. He wanted to hire a young up-and-coming assistant coach from Chicago named John Shire. That is 100% true. I am 100% positive. And his school president actually said no to it. School president, the way I understand it, school president was like, I don't want to hire a Chicago guy because if we have to fire him, if he's not good, it's not, it's going to be a train wreck and the PR is going to be a nightmare and I'm going to have people up my ass, whatever, excuse my language. But I just bring it up because I was told that Dwayne Peevy was ready to make the hire with John Shire and he basically got overturned. And so I bring it up because to me, that he ends up having to hire Tony Stubblefield. Tony Stubblefield gets fired. He nails the Chris Holtmann hire. And the thing about Dwayne, and I know him a little bit, and I'm not advocating for somebody that I don't think should get the job. I'm advocating because I think he's the right guy. He understands Kentucky. He knows all of the power players there, and he's proven he can run an athletic department. He's crushing it to DePaul. The team is good. I think, I haven't looked at the Big East standings, but I think if they win out, there's a possibility that freaking DePaul gets a 4 seed at the Big East tournament, which is basically essentially unprecedented since they've joined the Big East. Right now, DePaul, as they sit here, 16-13, 18-10 in the Big East. They are currently in 5th place alone in the Big East. So we'll see what happens. They have 2 games left. Villanova at home tomorrow night, and then they play Butler at home to end the season. So we'll see what happens with Kentucky. We'll see what's going on with that decision. Should mention, before we switch gears and talk a little Tyran Stokes, I'm going to be in Kentucky next week. If you're a Kentucky fan watching this, I need you with me at the Mint next Tuesday night. Okay, so Tuesday night, it's the night before the SEC tournament. We are doing a Torres hangout at the new Circa Sportsbook at the Mint Kentucky Downs in beautiful Franklin, Kentucky. It's about 15 minutes from Bowling Green. It's about 40 minutes from Nashville. And listen, you're going to be driving down to Nashville. You're going to be in Bowling Green hanging out. You need to come hang out with Torres, okay? Basically, we're going to be in the sports book all night watching games. There's going to be free food, free drinks. I already talked to Circa. Free drink vouchers when you show up. Free food. It's going to be taken care of. We're going to be watching games. We're going to be hanging out. I will be there. Producer Matt will be there. It's going to be a blast. It is next Tuesday. Probably going to be about 6 Central Time, 7 Eastern. The Mint in Franklin is in the Central Time Zone. So show up, have some free food, have some free booze. And oh, by the way, if you want to get on the list, make sure to email me, Aaron Torres podcast questions at gmail.com. Aaron Torres podcast questions at gmail.com. That is the way to get on the RSVP list. Limited spots. I want to make sure that you are there. Come hang out. Mint Kentucky Downs, the Circa Sportsbook at the Mint. Email me, RSVP, Aaron Torres podcast questions at gmail.com. And we do hope to see you there next Tuesday, the place to be the day before the SEC tournament. All right. Very quickly, let's go ahead. Let's switch gears. So we just talked Kentucky hiring a new AD potentially. We'll talk about that more in a minute. But we got to switch gears, and we got to talk about the recruitment that feels like it's never gonna end. Remember Rose and Titanic? It's been 84 years. That's what the Tyran Stokes recruitment feels like. It was funny. I was thinking about this. I remember last year, the Nate Ament recruitment was the one that felt like it's never going to end. It's going to go on in perpetuity. Every week there's a new update. Well, I bring it up because we got yet another update on Tyran Stokes. And maybe, just maybe, Kentucky is back in the mix. But what I want to talk about is more, should Kentucky even want this guy at this point? Because it is a circus. It is chaos. Let's go ahead and get into it. The Tyran Stokes saga we have talked about so much on this show. You don't need me to tell you every single piece of news on this. But the bottom line is, from the state of Kentucky, was playing high school ball in California. There was a time in the fall we all thought he was going to commit to Kentucky. I include myself. If that makes me an uninformed, casual, then so be it. But I remember around Big Blue Madness, it was like there was a real conversation of like, is Tyran Stokes going to commit to Kentucky at Big Blue Madness? And so I bring it up because when I look at this whole situation, with Tyran Stokes, it's been on and on and on. You thought he was maybe going to commit in the fall. And then guess what happens? Trouble at school, leaves school, goes to a different high school. And from there, it got pretty quiet. Then, as we just referenced with Mitch Barnhart, the JMI stuff happened. So you have that. Then on top of that, you had the fact that Kansas was really in the mix, and it felt like Kansas was in the driver's seat. He goes to visit Lawrence. There's talk that Kansas is the favorite, and it felt like recruitment's done. Whatever. Let's all move on. Well, I bring it up because we got yet another twist on, I guess it would have been Monday. Paul Biancardi from ESPN, he's doing a big write-up on all the different players that are still available, where they're going, what their game is, who's their comp, whatever. But for the uncommitted players, there was a little bit of intel that was shared. And so, Matt, you can now pop up what Paul Biancardi wrote on ESPN.com. He spoke with the high school coach of Tyran Stokes, who is now playing in Seattle. Mike Bethea is a legendary high school coach in Seattle at Rainier Beach. A lot of star players have gone there. And he said to Paul Biancardi at ESPN, Mark Pope was here. Tyran is in the process of setting up an official visit when his season is over. He is not in a rush to make the decision. A decision. He is looking for the best fit. Ooh, buddy. So Tyran Stokes, who we thought was a Kansas lock, all of a sudden now may be visiting Kentucky. So what's going on? What's fact? What's fiction? It keeps changing. Does Kentucky get him? But I think the big question is, does Kentucky even want him at this point. So let's go ahead and discuss. First of all, as far as the news is concerned, why it's interesting is because it literally comes 1 week after Joe Tipton basically said Kentucky's essentially out of it. Okay. Now I always tell you, we don't share stuff from behind paywalls on this show. We respect all the writers that are asking for money and, not even asking for money, but that their content is behind a paywall. I respect them. I'm not going to share it on this show. But what I also say is if somebody else shares it, and it's out there, then we're going to share it. So this was the update on Tyran Stokes as of literally like 4 days ago. Matt, you could pop up the tweet that I sent you. This was from Kentucky Hoops IG. Kentucky is still in pursuit of Tyran Stokes. However, quote, he does not prefer to go there, and Kentucky only remains an option in, quote, in case an NIL deal does not come together at Kansas. So literally, like 5 days ago, the narrative was he doesn't want to go to Kentucky. He will only go there if the NIL does not work out in Kansas's favor. Not exactly glowing a week ago. Now, a week later, his high school coach says he wants to go visit Kentucky. So what is fact? What is fiction? Let's break it down. And let me say this. A couple things. One, I don't think the high school coach is lying. I don't think he's actively trying to mislead people in this recruitment. And if he says Mark Pope has been in since Tyran got to Seattle, I will believe him. But what I would also say is this, the high school coach has only been involved in this kid's life for 2 months, 3 months. I mean, I think he got thrown out of his high school in like mid-October. So since December. And so I don't know that the Stokes camp necessarily, I think what he is saying, he believes to be true, but I don't think he's like this mouthpiece that's everything that the Stokes camp says is gospel coming from him. And that's not disrespect. Legendary high school coach. I remember interviewing him years ago. I believe they had Kevin Porter Jr. at that high school at the time. And so I only bring it up because he's a legendary coach. This is not a criticism of him, but I don't think necessarily that, he speaks for the family. They've only known each other a few months. Okay. So that's one. Two, what I would also say is this. I think the big interesting question now about Kentucky is even if he wants to visit, even if he wants to commit, should Mark Pope even take him at this point? And it's become a fascinating conversation. So let's go ahead and break down that one, because to me, this is the fascinating conversation. And there are essentially two very different topics in the Kentucky community right now. The first topic, if you have a chance to get the number one high school player in America, you go get him. You don't think about it. You need him. Mark Pope, his teams haven't been as talented as some others in the past. If you can get a player of this talent, you just do it. That's idea number one. Idea number two is, seems like there's a lot of drama. And can Mark Pope even, handle's not the right word, but is Mark Pope the right guy for a player that clearly, I don't know how to say this appropriately. Like, I don't think he's a bad kid, but there just is drama behind him, right? 4 different high schools, whatever it is, fight at the high school in California, like whatever. And so the question becomes, do you take him if you can, or is this just one where you say, we get the ties, he's from Kentucky, but if we can get him, do we even want him? Okay, so two different things to that. The first thing that I would say, I don't know that I have a strong opinion on this one, because to me, I actually see both sides. And I do generally am in favor of going ahead, and if you have a chance to get a difference-making talent, you go ahead and do it, right? And I think it's especially interesting it's an especially interesting situation because Mark Pope is clearly going to have to rebuild this roster almost entirely from scratch this offseason. Like, if you had a culture of 8-9 guys that were all coming back, and your culture was built and you were already good and you can add this dude, you do it, no doubt, right? But I think what makes it interesting is, do you do it knowing that you're almost going to entirely build a roster? And I think, again, there's pluses and minuses to both. I think, to me, you have to consider it solely because of the talent. And what I mean by that is this, is like I said, Mark Pope is going to have to bring in probably 7, 8, 9, 10 new guys, has 0 high school commits, so they're all going to be through the portal. And I'll just be transparent. There aren't that many good difference-making guys in the portal. There just aren't. And I was thinking about it this week. You go through the guys that were like the portal stars, can't miss a year ago. Donovan Dent. I still think he picked the wrong school. He's finally figuring it out, but it took about 25 games, which is basically 2/3 of the regular season, for him to figure it out at UCLA. Darion Williams. Love Darion Williams. Great kid. He has not been what NC State thought he would be. Jaden Quayens has barely played, and we're not going to go down that road right now. Sounds like he could come back. Doesn't change the fact that, it's just kind of tough. And so I only bring it up because if you think that you're going to get like 5 difference makers in the portal, it's just not going to happen. And as a matter of fact, if you go through the high school ranks this year, you can argue just about every team that took the 5-star high school player is happy with the decision. Do you think Arkansas would trade Darius Acuff for any guard they could have gotten in the portal? Answer is no. Do you think UNC would trade Caleb Wilson for any player they could have gotten out of the portal? The answer is no. Do you think Cam Boozer, Duke? No, they would not trade him for any big man that was in the portal last year, and you go on and on down the list. I know it hasn't gone well for BYU and AJ DeBonsa. He might be the best player in college basketball, but outside of Cam Boozer. By the way, Michael Luke, we didn't talk about this, but there was this narrative on Arizona that they didn't recruit enough out of the portal, and it was because they had 2 first-round picks in Koa Pete and Braden Burries coming in. So I tend to lean with the talent. I do also understand that clearly there has been some sort of weird locker room thing at Kentucky this year. I get that. I really do. And do you want to bring in somebody that has a little bit of baggage? And can Mark Pope really handle him? Is that the right kind of person for that program? So I get both sides. But I guess what I would just say is I actually think if he's actually interested, you do it. Now, the counter to that is I would say if you think that he is just using you to leverage Kansas, then you do also have to nip it in the bud right now. I don't think you can bring him to campus if you don't think you're going to get him. I don't think you can keep recruiting him if you don't, because it's going to look bad if you bring him to campus for another visit, another chance, another this, another that, and then he still goes to Kansas, and the whole time you got played just to get more NIL money. And so to me, I don't know how you do it. I don't know who you have to talk to get a straight answer out of him, but it's like, if you're not serious about this, we're not bringing you to campus. And then conversely, what I would also say is this: put it out in the media. Just use Jacob Polachek, use Jack Pilgrim, use the guys who cover that team every day and say, we're not actually recruiting this kid. We love him. We wish him luck, whatever. But again, you just cannot have another situation where you bring a kid to campus, he doesn't commit, the fans get excited, you think you're going to get him, whatever. So it's a fascinating conversation on Tyran Stokes. We will see what happens from here. All right, we're going to get out of here. Before we do, should mention again, speaking of Kentucky, speaking of Tyran Stokes, if you are in the state of Kentucky, make sure to come hang out next week, night before the SEC tournament, the place to be, the brand new Circa Sportsbook, Mint Kentucky Downs, the Mint in Franklin, Kentucky. Okay, we'll probably be there about 6 p.m. Central Time, 7 p.m. Eastern. This is the place we're going to hang out. It's going to be me. It's going to be producer Matt. We're going to have free food, free drinks. All you got to do, email Aaron Torres podcast questions at gmail.com. Aaron Torres podcast questions at gmail.com. Come hang out. RSVP at that email address, Aaron Torres podcast questions at gmail.com. We want you there. We want to hang out. This is going to be the place to be. Night before the SEC tournament, free food, free drinks, about 35 minutes from Nashville, 15, 20 minutes from Bowling Green, Kentucky. Come hang out, the new Circa Sportsbook. I'll tell you what, when I started the show today, I did not plan on doing an hour and a half of content, but it is time. It is time for me to go. I appreciate everybody's support. We're going to go ahead and get out of here. Shout out to Torrent Craig. Shout out to Rachel, who hates my voice. Shout out to JJ Reddick. You F-Ed unblock me, bro. We'll be back tomorrow morning. Plenty more, maybe more on the Kentucky search, plenty more on the games on Tuesday night. I'm going to roll. We did a lot